Okay, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash, and double honors and respect to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth, as well as much respect and honors to the brothers that are pushing this truth and sincerity across the four winds of this earth and risking their lives and freedom to do so. I would also like to give much honors and respect to the brothers and sisters that are of the hope for the elect, that are doing their very best to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High to the best of their abilities. Shalom. Slakia. I have this article right here, and I'm going to go ahead and just dive right into it, and I'm going to try to make this lesson quick and straight and to the point. But before I get started, I will say this: I'm going to be very careful with some of the words that I say, because you already know how YouTube likes to get down, especially when you start talking about, particular topics and whatnot. Now, the title of this article, it says Deion Sanders has clots procedure, plans quick return. Okay, now this is actually a fairly new article. It's dated October the 7th, 2025. So it's about a day old. Now here it is. If you've been keeping up with Deion Sanders, I want to say over the past 5 years, Deion Sanders, his health has been on a steady decline. Now, this right here is not the first procedure that Deion Sanders, has had, to have some clots removed. A couple of years back, he's had some clots removed from his legs. Okay, and if you actually see his legs, okay, there's photos out there, of him after he had his procedure to have, to have those clots removed from his legs. Okay, his legs just look toe up. Okay, they look sliced all up. Okay, they look terrible, and I'm not trying to be funny either. Okay, now here it is. He's back in the hospital again. Having the same procedure to have some clots removed from his legs. Okay, also, I want to say maybe 3 months ago, he was in the hospital because he had the big C. Okay, he had cancer. Okay, and they had to remove his bladder, and I believe they replaced his bladder with an artificial bladder as a result. So all this has been happening over the past 5 years. Okay, and we know why this is happening. Now here it is. I mean, when Esau came out with that stuff, that Beetlejuice, a while back for that C-scamdemic, Deion Sanders, he went down to Esau and he trusted in Esau, and he and he had a couple of those, he had a couple of drinks of that Beetlejuice. Also, too, Deion Sanders, he encouraged his team, when the team that he was coaching, he encouraged the team that he was coaching to trust in Esau and drink that Beetlejuice as well. Okay, and so Deion Sanders promoted that Beetlejuice that Esau came out with, and just look at Deion Sanders today. Just look at him. Every so often you hear about him having to go into the the hospital for a procedure and whatnot. Okay, his health again has been on a steady decline. I'm going to go ahead and just read a little bit of this article. It says Colorado coach Deion Sanders was to undergo a procedure later Tuesday with the hope of being back at practice the next day and on the sideline this weekend against Iowa State. Okay, it says after the Buffaloes Saturday night loss to TSU, Sanders said that he thought he was dealing with, you see that, again, okay, BCs again. Okay, I'll just say it like that. I don't want to keep saying the word, because if I keep saying the word, these devils, they'll end up, possibly taking the lesson down and giving me a strike and whatnot. It says he ended his weekly news conference with a update saying, "I cannot wait to get past this hurdle." He added, "It's hereditary and has nothing to do with me working at the level I'm trying to compete at." Now, see, again, this devil, he trusted in this devil, okay, with that stuff. Deion Sanders trusted in Esau with that stuff a while back, okay, that Beetlejuice. And we already know, what's happening to a lot of people who trusted in these devils with that Beetlejuice. They're having all types of health issues and whatnot, and they're They're dropping and, they're flopping and dropping left and right. That's what's happening to Deion Sanders, okay? It says, okay, it says the coach said he was in pain during a 35-21 loss at TCU last Saturday, alternating between sitting and limping along the sideline with his leg throbbing. He didn't wear a shoe on his left foot in the second half, and after the game, said he was hurting like crazy. And see, that's another thing too. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's had some toes removed too as well. Okay? It says, I'm going to be all right, said Sanders, who's Buffalo's host number 22, Iowa State, on Saturday. It says, prayerfully, I'll be right back tomorrow because I don't miss practice. I don't plan on doing such. Okay, it says Sanders dealt with, these BC issues while at Jackson State in 2021. Okay, because here it is back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he had these same issues and he had to have them removed. Okay, it says with doctors, amputating 2 of his toes on his left foot. See, it says he also skipped a Pac-12 Media Day session in 2023 following a procedure to remove a BC from his right leg and another to straighten toes on his left foot. Okay, see, he's been going through through it. But again, this is what happens when you trust in these devils. Okay, it never ends well. And he trusted in the devil. Okay, and he promoted that stuff that these devils came out with, during that C-scamdemic. Okay, and so as a result, he calls others, okay, to go off. Okay. It says on Tuesday, his good friend and longtime NFL cornerback Adam Pac-Man Jones attended the media session as a show of support. It says Sanders appreciates all the text and phone calls from people expressing their concerns over his health. I've got a lot of well wishes of people talking about, you need to slow down. You need to take a break, Sanders said. There's nothing that I could have done to stop what's transpiring. Okay, he could have, not trusted in the enemy with that stuff. Okay, but he did. He ran down there. He trusted in Esau. Okay, and now, his health is on a decline. Okay, it says nothing that I could have taken or something that I'm just not abiding by. It is what it is. Okay, see, here it is. He's trusting in these devils versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and it's not ending well for him. It says Sanders, 58, spent time away from the team over the summer after being diagnosed with an aggressive form of bladder cancer. Okay, and see, as I had mentioned earlier, I want to say about maybe 3 months ago, he had to have his bladder removed. Okay, like I said, he's been going through it. But again, this is what happens, okay, when you trust in the enemy versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Anytime you trust in the enemy versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua, it never ends well. Okay, it says he revealed the details of his treatment, which involved doctors reconstructing a section of his intestines to function as a bladder. He frequently needs to use the restroom, so the school introduced a portable sideline bathroom for him during game times. Okay, it says, I trust God with all my heart and all my soul and all my mind, Sanders said Tuesday. Okay, but see, he should have trusted in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and not, trust in his enemy. Okay, when Esau came out with that, that stuff for that C-scamdemic. But instead of trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua, he trusted in the enemy. Okay, and it's not ending well for him. Anytime you trust in this devil, it doesn't end well. It says, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get some of the best sleep in the world for, I think, 4 hours. It says the surgery is going to be. I've never been high a day in my life. I've never drank, smoked, or anything. But when I get those surgeries, I am there on time. Okay. Now, see, again, this is what happens, okay, when you trust in the devil versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And this devil Esau, he has proven time and time again that he is not to be trusted. But a lot of our people, they want to run down there. And see, speaking of that, you still got people running down there, drinking that Beetlejuice, okay? And, again, trusting in this devil, it never ends well, okay? A lot of people who trusted in this devil, their health is on a steady decline and they flopping and dropping. I have a lot of family members, who ran down there and they trusted in that, in Esau with that stuff. And a lot of my family members that did that, they're having health issues. Okay. I want to say either the later part of last year or maybe the beginning of this year, I had a family member who passed away, because, she trusted in the enemy. She ran down there and she ain't no telling how many of them things she had, but she ended up getting the CAN, CER, and she ended up perishing, I've lost several classmates, as a result, of them running down there and trusting in this devil Esau with that stuff. It seems like almost every week or every other week or so, I'm hearing about people either that I went to school with or people that I know, they're passing away, just out the blue. Okay, now, and we know what's happening. We know what's going on. And so what I'm going to go ahead on and do is I'm going to go ahead and bring out a couple of scriptures. But again, trusting in the enemy never ends well. And this leads me to my first scripture. This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12 and verse 10. And it reads, never trust thy enemy, for like his iron rusted, so is his wickedness. And again, this devil Esau has proven time and time again that he is the enemy and that he is not to be trusted. Okay. And see, here it is, during that seed scamdemic, a lot of our people, what they did was, they trusted in the enemy. They ran down to Esau, looking for Esau to save them. Okay. And a lot of them know they ran down there. A lot of our people, they ran down there to Esau and they drink that Beetlejuice that Esau came out with, for that seed scamdemic, And again, those, who trusted in this devil, with that drink, basically what they did was, they basically played themselves. They got played. Okay, because this devil, Esau, he created, the seed scamdemic, and he came up with the Beetlejuice for that seed scamdemic. Okay. And see, here it is. People know they're flopping and dropping left and right and having all types of issues, in terms of their health as a result of trusting in the enemy. And, here it is. As I was saying, I've lost, several classmates, and here it is. I'm hearing about someone, yesterday I heard about someone that I knew. They just passed away out of the blue too. And so, but this is what happens when you trust in the enemy. It never ends well. And this devil Esau, he has an agenda. He wants to, depopulate. Okay. He wants to keep people, in a sick and weakened state and whatnot. This devil, he's not to be trusted. Okay. He's proven time and time again that he is the enemy and that he is not to be trusted. This devil has been raping and robbing and murdering our people all throughout the inception of America, and he's still doing it to this day. This devil, he's been raping and robbing and murdering our people all throughout history, But then yet here it is, our people, they want to put their faith and trust in this devil. Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 10, again, it says, never trust thy enemy, for like his iron rusted, so is his wickedness. This devil, just like how you have a piece of iron that's untreated and you leave it out in the weather, how, you can have it, clean and shiny, but if you have it untreated and you leave it out in the weather, rust is going to come upon it. Okay. Iron will rust. Okay. If it's left untreated, and just like how iron will rust. Okay. These devils, they're going to show their horns. Okay. They're going to be wicked. They're going to continue to be wicked. They may smile in your face and act like they're trying to help you and act like they like you, but you best believe in the back of their mind, they thinking of ways to try to destroy you. Okay. Esau is the enemy, and he is not to be trusted. Okay, let's go to the book of Isaiah. This is chapter 30, and this is verse 1. And it reads, woe to the rebellious children, said the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Okay, and see, here it is, many of our people are rebellious. Okay, the 2/3 of our people over here in Babylon the Great, they're rebellious as hell. 2/3 of our people, they reject the words of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Here it is, when we're at camp, you have a lot of our people, they just walk by, they turn their nose up, they make little rude comments and whatnot at the men of the Lord. Here it is, the majority of our people over here, you just have to, the 2/3 of our people, they reject the words of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Okay? And so the Most High says, woe, meaning destruction to those of our people, who are rebellious. And see, here it is, during that sea scandemic, men of our people, they ran down to Esau and they drank his beetle juice. Okay? They took a counsel and a covering of this devil versus taking a counsel and a covering of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Okay, and see, as a result, we're seeing the outcome of what happens, when you're trusting the devil versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. We're seeing the outcome of what happens when you're trusting the devil versus trusting in the Most High Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. It never ends well. Okay, anytime you trust in this devil versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, it always ends bad. Okay, it's not going to end well. It's going to always end bad. Okay, because here it is. People, like I say, their health is on the steady decline as a result of that stuff, of drinking that stuff. People having all types of issues, people dropping left and right, all because they took a counsel and a covering of this devil versus taking a counsel and a covering of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Okay, you had a lot of people, okay, they were, you had a lot of people, they didn't want to, they were afraid of, possibly losing their jobs. They were afraid of possibly, losing the lifestyle that they were accustomed to living. Okay. And you just had some people, they just went along, to get along. And so what they did was they ran down there and they trusted in this devil with that stuff. They took a counsel and a covering of this devil Esau versus taking the counsel and a covering of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. And it's not ending well for them. Isaiah chapter 30, this is verse 2. It says, that walked to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Okay, and see, many of our people, they put their faith and their trust, they put their faith and trust in Esau, who's the modern day Pharaoh. Many of our people, they're trusting in this system of Esau's, this failing system of Esau's, versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. And that's totally going off because, again, Esau is the enemy. And the Lord told us to never trust our enemy, as pursuant to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 10, which we, read earlier. Isaiah chapter 30, this is verse 3. It says, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. Okay? And see, those white people who put their trust in Esau, who again is the modern day Pharaoh, they put their trust in Esau and his Maxine Waters, okay, it's leading to their shame and their confusion because they're having all types of issues, in terms of their health. They're dropping left and right, And see, you had a lot of people, who was pushing that stuff for Esau, and they were getting mad at other folks, for not, going along with it, I had, several family members that, had came against me because I wouldn't follow their lead and run down to Esau, and allow Esau to, violate me with that stuff. I had some family members, they cussed me out and everything like that, all because I wouldn't follow their lead and run down there and trust in Esau. Now I hear there's some same family members that are having all types of issues in terms of their health, and they're all nervous and scared and whatnot because they're seeing what's happening to a lot of these people, okay, who ran down there and trusted in Esau with that stuff. They're very quiet right now. Okay. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, and this is chapter 10, this is verse 8. And it reads, he that diggeth a pit shall fall into it, and whoso breaketh an hedge, a serpent shall bite him. Okay, and see, here it is, men of our people, they dug, they pretty much, dug their own pit and they fell into it. Okay, when they trusted in this devil with that stuff, versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Basically, what they did was they basically dug their own grave. Okay, when they trusted in this devil Esau, versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Men of our people, they broke their hedge of protection, because they ran down and they trusted in Esau with that snake bite, versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Okay, and see again, I mean, this is what's happening, okay, to, Coach Prime, okay? He broke that hedge of protection. He ran down under Esau, okay, and he drank that, he got that stuff, okay? And now you're seeing what's happening to him. Over the past 5 years, his health has been on a steady decline, And, a lot of people, their health, has been on a steady decline, and people, just flopping and dropping left and right, just all out the blue and whatnot. I mean, like almost every day, you're hearing about people, getting ill or people, becoming, suddenly unalive as a result, And, just like, how, you had, just like how, you had, a lot of people, they ran down under Esau and they trusted in Esau with that drop sauce, that Maxine Waters. You're going to have a lot of our people, they're going to break that hedge of protection and they're going to run down to Esau and they're going to get Esau's MO to the T to the B when he mandates it, And as a result, they're going to be missile food over here because the Most High Yahweh Shem Yahushua told us to stay clear of that MO to the T to the B. Okay, this is going to be my last scripture and then we'll end the lesson. And this is in the book of Baruch, and this is chapter 2, and this is verse 30. And it reads, "For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivities, they shall remember themselves." Okay, and see, here it is, men of our people, they're stiff-necked. Men of our people, they're hard-headed. Here it is, men of our people, they ignore and they reject the words of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Okay, and as a result, this is why many of our people are getting caught into the miseries, they're getting caught into the calamities, they're getting caught into the snares, okay, that this devil Esau is setting out here, okay? And these are ultimately judgments coming from the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua because the Lord uses Esau as a whipping stick. But here it is, men of our people, they would rather listen to, this devil Esau. They would rather listen to these pork chop eating pastors, okay, tell them smooth things and lies and whatnot, Men of our people, they would rather listen to these, these people that I just named, versus, listening to the men of the Lord. And as a result, men of our people are getting caught up into these calamities, okay? They're getting caught into the snares and the traps. And see, the warnings went out, the warnings went out for our people to stay clear of that drop sauce that Esau came out with for that sea scamdemic. But men of our people, they ignored the warnings, okay? You had a lot of our people, they were trying to, save their jobs. Okay, they were trying to save the lifestyles that they were accustomed to living. Okay, you had a lot of people, they was just trying to, go along to get along. Okay, and you just had a lot of people, they just rather, they just lacked faith, and so they just rather they'll just put their trust in Esau versus, trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. But again, the warnings went out, but men of our people, they just ignored the warnings and they ran down under Esau. And they trusted, in Esau with his stuff. And as a result, we're seeing the outcome of what happens. Okay, because a lot of our people, they're getting ill out here. A lot of our people, they're perishing out here. They're just dropping, flopping and dropping, out the blue. Baruch chapter 2, and this is verse 30 again. It says, "For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivities, they shall remember themselves." Okay, and so, with that being said, the elect is waking up to their true nationalities in the land of our captivities. Okay, the elect is coming back to the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And so with that being said, Israel, it's time for you so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, and those that are of the speckled bird that look like these other nations, but you go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on your father's side. It's time to return to the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. It's time to remember yourselves and it's time to repent. Okay. And so That's pretty much the point. I'm going to go ahead and end off here. I hope it was edifying. Once again, I want to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and double honors and respect to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, Kwam Yasharala and Abba Baba. Shalom.